Fewer homes sold in January across every county I cover. Sales dropped, pending sales dropped, new listings dropped, and somehow prices still went up, in some counties by double digits. That math shouldn't work, but it does, and the reason why changes how you should be thinking about the spring market. I'm Jim Stevenson, a realtor here in the Philadelphia suburbs, and if you're watching the numbers before making a move, this is the update that matters. So let's start with the big picture because it sets up everything else. Across the entire Philadelphia metro, closed sales fell 8.6% compared to January of last year. We went from 3,963 closings down to 3,621 closings. The median sale price still climbed 6.4% to $380,000. And the median days on market jumped from 21 to 26. Fewer transactions, higher prices, homes sitting longer. That combination tells you something specific. Buyers are out there, they're looking, but they're being more careful with their money. And sellers who price right are still getting paid. Sellers who don't, they're sitting. Look, a lot of people see the sales drop and think that the market's crashing. It's not. Active listings across the metro are up 8.4% to just over 10,000 homes. That sounds like a lot until you realize that's roughly half of where we were before the pandemic. We're not even close to a balanced market. We're going from extremely tight to just regular tight. And here's the number that tells you spring is already building. New pending sales jumped 15% from December to January. That means contracts are getting signed. Buyers aren't just browsing, they're making moves. Now here's where it gets interesting because these four counties are telling very different stories right now. Let's start with Chester County because it's still the most expensive market in the region and it's still moving the fastest. Median sale price hit $537,000 in January, up 5.4% from last year. Homes are selling in 16 days. That's the fastest of any county I track. Only 287 homes closed, down almost 9% from last year, but with just 1.16 months of supply. Chester is still extremely tight. If you're looking in Great Valley or to different Easttown districts, you're still competing, not a question. New listings actually dropped almost 11% in Chester. So you've got fewer homes coming on the market, fewer sales going through, and basically the same tiny inventory sitting there. That's a recipe for strong pricing power, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Sellers here are still calling the shots. On a $537,000 home in Chester County, that 5.4% price jump means you're paying about $27,500 more than you would have a year ago. That works out to roughly $180 a month on a 30-year mortgage, not a rounding error. And Chester's a county where you're already stretching for the school district. That extra $180 a month can be the difference between comfortable and stressed. Here's the catch though. Even with fewer sales, Chester County showings dropped 8.3%. That's the biggest decline in buyer activity of the four counties. So there are fewer eyeballs on homes, but the ones who are looking are serious. They're showing up pre-approved and ready to go. That's the kind of competition that's hard to beat if you're still getting your financing sorted out. Now let's jump to Delaware County because this one caught me off guard. The median price jumped 12.9% year over year to $361,000. That's the biggest price increase of any county in this update. Closed sales dropped almost 12%, which is the steepest decline of the four. But here's the part that matters. Days on market barely moved. It went from 16 to 17, one day. So even with far fewer closings, the homes that are selling are still moving quick. You're probably thinking that 12.9% growth sounds like a bubble or an outlier. And I thought the same thing when I first pulled up the numbers. But look at what's driving it. Delco's inventory only went up 1.6%. There are 588 active listings in the entire county. Compare that to Montgomery County's 825, and with a 1.27 months of supply, there's just nothing to buy. When supply is that low and demand holds steady, prices climb, usually pretty fast. I was working with a family moving from South Jersey into Havertown last month. Her dad actually drove down from North Jersey on a Thursday to see the house before they made a decision. By Sunday, there were 4 offers. They got the house, but they had to come in strong on price and shorten the inspection window on a house built in 1948. And that tells you exactly how tight Delco still is near the Haverford or Radnor school district zones. This is the kind of trade-off I'll walk buyers through before they start touring. When to push hard and when to hold back. All right, let's look at Montgomery County because this is where the shift is most visible. And if you're a buyer, this might be the best news in the entire report. The median price came in at $450,000, up 3.2% from last year. That's the slowest price growth of the 4 counties. Closed sales fell 12.7%. That's the biggest sales drop in this update. And active inventory jumped 15.7% to 825 listings. Days on market went from 15 to 19, 4 extra days. So what's happening in Montco? More homes available, fewer people buying them, and prices barely moving. If you're targeting towns like Ambler, Lansdale, North Wales, or really anywhere in the North Penn School District, you've got more room to breathe right now than you've had in 2 years. That doesn't mean it's a buyer's market. 1.15 months of supply is still tight by any normal standard, but the pace has changed. You can take a second showing. You can negotiate on closing costs. You can actually make a decision without someone outbidding you 30 minutes after the listing goes live. And if you want help applying this to your exact short list of towns, schools, commute, monthly payment, book a call using the link in the description, or grab my free Philadelphia Suburbs relocation guide using the QR code on screen. Now Bucks County. Median price $500,000, up just 1% from last January. That's basically flat. Closed sales dropped 6.6%, and days on market jumped from 12 to 18. That's 6 extra days on market, the biggest jump of any county in this report. You're probably thinking Bucks is cooling off. On the surface, yeah, it looks that way, but dig into the supply numbers and the picture changes fast. Active inventory is up 13.9% to 591 listings. Sounds like more options, right? But months of supply is only 1.14. That's the tightest of all 4 counties. So while homes are sitting a little longer and price growth flattened out, there's still barely anything available. Here's the number that tells the whole story. New listings in Bucks dropped 9.2%. That's the steepest new listing decline of any county in this update. Sellers in Bucks are holding. They're not listing unless they absolutely have to. A lot of these homeowners locked in rates at 3% or lower during 2020 and 2021. Selling means giving up that rate and buying into today's market at 6-something%. So they sit. And every seller who stays put is one less home available for you. When a well-priced home does hit the market in Central Bucks or Council Rock, it still moves. The 18-day average gets dragged up by overpriced listings that sit for weeks. For the correctly priced ones, 18 days on market might as well be 18 hours. I was standing in the kitchen in Warrington 2 weeks ago with a couple moving from Mercer County, New Jersey. They just sold their house over there. I pull up the Bucks County tax records on my phone and I hand it to them. He looks at me and he goes, "Wait, that's it?" Because compared to what they were paying in Jersey, the tax bill felt like a typo. They've been budgeting an extra $800 a month for taxes that didn't exist. That freed up enough room in their monthly payment to jump from $475,000, to $530. Completely different set of homes. On a $500,000 home in Bucks, that 1% price growth means you're paying about $5,000 more than last January. Compare that to Delaware County, where 12.9% growth on $361,000 means you're paying $41,500 more. Same time frame, wildly different outcomes depending on which county you're in. And this is why the metro average is useless for actual buying decisions. All right, so let's zoom out and talk about what all of this means for your timing this spring, because the next 60 days are going to set the tone for the entire year. Mortgage rates right now are sitting around the lowest level since September 2022. That should be pulling more buyers in. And it is. New pending sales jumped 15% from December across the metro. Spring is loading up, but new listings also climbed 43% from December. So more buyers are coming and more inventory is coming with them. Here's the decision that decides everything. Which side grows faster? If listings keep climbing and outpace the contracts, you'll see prices flatten even more in Montgomery and Bucks. Maybe even a slight dip in some Montgomery County zip codes where inventory is stacking up. If buyer demand absorbs that new inventory before it has time to pile up, prices hold firm and we're back to multiple offers by April. Based on what I'm seeing right now with my own clients, the demand side is real. Showings are up, calls are up. People who paused last fall are calling back and saying they're ready. I had 2 buyer consultations last week where families said the same thing. They'd been watching rates, saw them coming down, and decided this was their window. The wild card is what happens nationally. If rates tick back up towards 7%, that demand cools fast. If they hold steady or drop a little more, spring is going to be competitive. Either way, the data right now says that you've got a window. How long it stays open depends on the county. Here's how I'd think about it county by county right now. If you're buying in Chester or Delaware, don't sit around waiting for a deal. The supply isn't there and prices are climbing fast. Every month you wait in Delco right now is costing you real money. If you're buying in Montgomery County, you've got the most room to negotiate that you've had, since early 2024. Use it. Ask for closing cost credits, push on inspection items, take that second showing without panicking. And if you're buying in Bucks, watch the new listing numbers over the next 30 days. If inventory stays tight and rates drop even a little, that flat 1% price growth could turn into 5% by summer, and you'll wish you'd move sooner. Here's the quick math on that. A half-point drop from 6.5% to 6% on a $500,000 home saves you about $165 a month. Sounds great, but if prices jump 4% while you wait, that's $20,000 added to the purchase price, which costs you about $130 a month for 30 years. The rate savings get eaten in about 8 months. Waiting only works if prices stay flat, and in Bucks with 1.14 months of supply, the numbers don't support that bet. Now you know what January's data actually means across these 4 counties. But here's what most people don't think about next. One local change coming in 2026 could quietly knock billions of suburban property values, and it has nothing to do with interest rates. Watch this video next because I'll show you exactly which towns are in the path of that hit and which counties are set to pull away from the pack this year. Thanks for watching.